Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your non-sequitur hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and this is the show where we review all the anime series from the previous season we did and didn't watch start to finish. Today we throw some bargain bin wannabe stands in the trash, try to determine if there really never is a girl to be found online, and exactly what's the deal with that goddamn Sakamoto guy. But first, let's dig into some news. Alright, short disclaimer in the beginning of the news segment here. We are not affiliated with Anime News Network, but all our news items, or at least most of them, are pulled directly from that source because it's a good site and we are lazy. So if you want to check out even more anime and manga news, please check out animenewsnetwork.com. Yeah, John, what do you have for us today?
Regalia is back.
Oh yeah, well, not quite.
Well, I mean, I haven't watched yet, but I guess they kind of recut the first few episodes as well as making changes and whatnot to better convey parts of the story. They said they were even like adding scenes and changing lines and whatnot. So
also aside from improving the overall animation quality, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, from hearsay, I've heard that the mechs are now CG, which is a little disappointing. But you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
That is a big turnoff for me, actually. Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, that's a shame.
We'll have to watch it and report back.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. Oh my god, no. I was so happy that those were, done in classic animation.
Yeah, it sounded like that's really something the director wanted to do, but I guess it wasn't really realistic for their timetable.
Apparently, yeah. God damn it, that's a shame, really. I really appreciate the show for going the classical animation route for its mecha, because that's not a thing that's, done regularly anymore. I'm hard pressed to find any show that's still doing that aside from Gundam.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the one.
Yeah, and fuck. That's a downer. Oh well, maybe the rest of the show is heightened a bit in terms of quality. I sure hope so. I mean, it's interesting just in terms of how that came about, and that the director was like willing to do that, and that people let him do that. Like, let's start. Basically, let's retry and start over, and we see if it works. If it worked out, probably in a review of the show, and we're gonna talk about that more then, I guess. But yeah, for now. The first... Wait, how many episodes aired in the first one?
They aired 4, so
okay.
They picked up just this week. This recording, well, that's right. The re-airing of the first episode was September 1st, so we won't get a new episode until September 29th.
Okay. Well, time to revisit the old episodes and see what they changed, and I really hope the CG mechs don't look too shitty. But we'll see. That's always a gamble.
It is possible for CG to not look completely terrible. So
yeah, I mean the CG in the Gundam again, Gundam the Origin. The CG mechs in that looked great when they made use of CG. Really fluid animation, and that's my most my biggest gripe. It's as always the more choppy stuff, and they didn't use choppy CG, low frame CG for the mechs in Gundam the Origin. So I don't expect Regalia to have that kind of CG quality because it's a TV show, and that other one was an OVA. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's really tough because when you're comparing a TV to an OVA, a TV series to an OVA, it's like apples and oranges, really.
Yeah. I mean, they're shitty looking OVAs too. A lot of them. The one that immediately springs to mind is one of the Hunter x Hunter OVAs. Its first run, Greed Island, final looked atrocious. But yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely going to check out the show and see if it got better or maybe worse. That's to be determined later in actual review. What else? What else do you got?
Crunchyroll today started streaming Persona 5 the animation, The Daybreakers.
Oh, okay.
Which is like a big prologue thing to the game proper, which I believe comes out in a couple weeks in Japan.
All right. I'm still wondering if I'm gonna, get that like on launch day, or I should wait. I don't know. I haven't
Well, the
decided.
Western release is at least not until February, so you have time.
Oh, right, right. I forgot that's the Japanese launch date. Anyway, but yeah, I definitely want to check out the prologue. It's
It's okay because I still need to finish Persona 4, even though there isn't a link between each Persona game.
which is good because I kind of, I mean, I still feel like I should play Persona 3 and 4 because they're very well regarded, but the design of Persona 5 looks so interesting that I would really like to immediately jump into that one.
Every time Atlas JP posts one of the character PVs on their YouTube channel, I just kind of like squeak a little bit because it's like, oh my god, it looks so good.
Yeah, it really does. And I wonder if I mean, the anime cutscenes we've seen in the promotional videos for the game already looked really good. I wonder if the preview OVA will look as good too. Maybe probably done by the same studio. I don't know.
It's actually not. All of the stuff in game is done by good old Production IG.
Ah, nice. That's why it looked so good.
And the OVA is done by A1, so
Well, that
hopefully it's not terrible.
well, if it's running on a game budget, or if some of that cross promotion budget went into the production of this one, maybe it will look all right.
Yeah, maybe Sega handed them a larger bag of money than Capcom handed them for Ace Attorney.
Yeah, yeah, it's it's that's a good point. I mean, if it was done by Bandai Namco, they're willing to give a bunch of money for their production, as can seen with Tales of Zestiria: The Cross. So
We'll see. Well, that was also UFO Table.
yeah, still, I mean,
Because, I mean, if you want to talk the link between A1 and Bandai Namco, look to the 2012 Idolmaster and how they just went like 150% in on it.
so it could turn out well. I mean, just because it's A1 doesn't mean that they're going to totally bullshit it. And like I said, if there's a strong game franchise behind this, maybe we'll actually get to see something great out of them again, animation wise. We'll see. I mean, the episode is online right now on Crunchyroll. I believe they tweeted earlier that the episode is live now. So I'm probably gonna go and check it out after we're done with the recording.
Yeah, same.
And then probably the wait for the game is going to be even harder.
Well, I mean, Japan's only got to wait 12 more days for it.
Yeah, good for Japan. I can't play the Japanese version if it doesn't have English text.
Sure you can. You just kind of muddle your way through it. Oops.
Well, I could set a friend next to me who speaks Japanese, but he's busy with studies, so I don't think he will jump on that.
Well, we have time to build our hype for it.
Yes, indeed. All right, something else?
I guess one last thing that regards a voice actor and a voice actress. Apparently, Risa Taneda and Keiji Fujiwara have both basically gone on hiatus due to unspecified illness on both sides.
Okay.
Like this happened like pretty much the same day to both actors. So I mean, hopefully they're gonna be all right. But
maybe they're just burned out.
It says Taneda will go on hiatus from voice acting to focus on medical treatment for an unspecified illness. No signs of recovery, but she decided to focus solely on treatment.
Okay.
She's been in, I'll just run this down a bit quick to give a frame of reference for both of them. She's been in Beyond the Boundary as Mirai Kuriyama, Strike the Blood as Yukina Himeragi, and Food Wars as Erina Nakiri.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fujiwara, he's been in the game forever. So I know I'd probably be able to say know him best as AC/DC from JoJo's.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He's in Danganronpa as Koichi Kizakura, and he was for the longest time in Crayon Shinchan as Shin's father Hiroshi.
Oh, there you go. I guess there's not much to say about that because, we don't know the cause of their illness, but, just wishing them all the best and for a safe return. They have done some good voice work. So, we'll hope they'll be able to return soon and deliver more of their talent.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Fujiwara's for a long time, so when I get to hear him, it's like, yeah, he's pretty cool. And I mean, Risa Taneda has not been in the game as long, but there's no denying that she does have talent. So hope they come back soon and they're feeling better.
Yep, same from me. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, that's it for the news, and now it's time to take out a particularly big pile of trash. So there's this guy called Eiji Hoshimiya, and he has a little problem. 10 years ago, a fairy gave him the power of a so-called order. Orders are like kind of supernatural beings who grant the wishes of their users. And apparently, Eiji, for whatever reason, wished for the world to be destroyed. Because that's exactly what happened. Since then, he naturally has been despised by the survivors, and therefore refused to use his power. However, he is forced into action when his little sister, Sena, is captured and abducted by another order user called Rin Kurenai. He reluctantly joins her group, the so-called Group of 10, whose goal seems to be to make Eiji the puppet leader of an independent Japan under their control. But as Eiji soon finds out, there is much more to the motives of the Group of 10 and his past than he expected. So, this incredibly convoluted summary belongs to a show called Big Order. It's based on a manga by Sakae Esuno, who wrote Future Diary, or Mirai Nikki as it's called in Japanese. And I haven't watched that show or the manga, but I heard it's a horrible thing, which is very dark and violent and disgusting, and yeah. But a lot of people like it apparently. Also, I've heard, which seems weird to me. But yeah, maybe for the same reason that I would like a shitty show. But yeah, same author. Big Order is produced by Asread, which aside from Corpse Party have done mostly in between and second key animation on projects, like for example the Berserk movies or the second season of Code Geass. And it's directed by Nobuharu Kamanaka, and this seems to be his first head director gig. I'm not sure if I overlooked something, but he has worked as a unit and episode director on stuff like Birdie, The Mighty, and Freezing. Woof. That's a giant drift of quality right there. Holy crap. Anyway, so much for the production info on this show. Let's get into the actual review. No, first I need to preempt this with a bit of information about my anime viewing habits. Bear with me here.
Uh-oh.
I sometimes like to watch really horrible shows. If they're so consistently bad that they are, in my eyes, hilarious. The shows that make the cut here in that regard are usually a fantastic amalgamation of bad writing, bad animation, bad direction, everything that turns it into a giant, glorious clusterfuck of awfulness. And one of the things that keeps me engaged the most in those shows is my morbid curiosity. I want to see how bad it can get, how deep the rabbit hole goes, and if there's another shitty plot twist or character looking around the corner to make me laugh, stuff like that. I'm interested in those kind of shows. I've watched a lot of them, but there have been a few here and there that I really enjoyed for their shittiness. So yeah, bear that in mind when it comes to review of the show. When I read the incredibly dumb and convoluted story summary for Big Order, I was already pretty sure this is going to be a trash fest of massive proportions. I wasn't wrong. Definitely not. After I watched the first episode, I was absolutely certain that this was going to rank among the greats of anime dumpster fires I've watched in recent years. Like Valvrave and Cross Ange. And in parts it did, but in other parts it falls even short of that low, low, low standard. But first, let's talk about the good stuff. The show has all the right setups. There's a hero with a tragic past. He is hated by the world, but he has this incredible and hilariously vaguely defined power that he could use to subjugate everyone on the planet. It's like your ultimate edgelord fantasy, I would say. Like, oh man, the world has wronged me and hates me, but it's not my fault. But if I wanted to, I could show them all. Ha! Shit like that. And yeah, that immediately appealed to me. It's like, oh my god, this is so dumb. This is like a dumb, shitty setup, and I'm probably gonna enjoy the fuck out of this if it's done right. And of course, as one does with these kind of shows, he has a little kind of sickly sister that he wants to protect that is obviously not directly related to him. And of course, since this is a bad anime, she wants to fuck him. And spoilers, they actually do in this show.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yeah, it's not even like talked around. They actually do. But I expected this to happen. There are a lot of outlandish, colorful characters with really weird order powers in the show, which, gives you a lot of variety in a way. Obviously, with this kind of show, there are a lot of tits thrown around here, which is not necessary, but, doesn't hurt either, because it gives the series a very fitting sexploitation vibe in a way. And I don't know, that just fits with the theme and everything, and the excessive violence that the show has as well. So it all fits together in that regard. The theming, works. And the most important part for me, when I, go into the endeavor of watching these kind of shitty shows, there's a lot of unintentional comedy gold in there. That makes you either laugh out loud or slowly shake your head in amazed silence. One of my favorite scenes, I just want to give you an example of the unintentional comedy here, is when we learn. Obviously, we have, unintentional comedy in terms of bad animation and, shitty acting and everything, and stupid story moments and stuff like that. But one of my favorite scenes is when we learn about how Keiji met his sister Senna in a flashback, and he talks about how he spent time with her in the hospital. And then we see Senna, and then on the lap of that 4-year-old child rests a book by Friedrich Nietzsche.
I remember you talking about this.
That scene gave me such a violent laugh out loud moment. I almost died. Like, really, I choked because I had drank something. I hadn't completely swallowed it yet. Oh my god, that scene was so fucking amazing. I immediately tweeted that a screenshot of that with the text below it. My little sister can't possibly be this nihilistic, and. And this is wow. Stuff like that is abound in the show, and I cherish it and I adore it, and I think that's great. This is what I watch these shows for. And of course there are a lot of crazy plot twists in the show as well. The story is taking a ridiculous new direction that comes out of nowhere in almost every episode of the show's runtime, and that is also one of its biggest problems, I'm sad to say, because even in these inherently bad shows, I personally need a semblance of a structured plotline. It can be as dumb and convoluted as and horrible and disgusting and offending as it wants to be, but I need to get the impression that the creator kinda knows where he or she wants to go. Be it as misguided of a vision as it can be, but there needs to be a vision there. And I didn't get that impression from Big Order, I'm sad to say. For example, yes, every new episode throws some ridiculous new stuff at you, which is cool and, keeps it interesting, but it doesn't stick with it. That's one of the major problems, maybe. For example, there's that incredibly dumb moment in the second or third episode where AG accidentally grabs the bunny ear shaped ribbon of a fortune teller girl from the group of 10. And one of the prophecies that girl received for herself was never to be touched by a man or she would get pregnant. And of course, that's what happens instantly. Literally.
Oh my God.
He grabs her ribbon, her belly gets big, and poof, she's pregnant. In itself, that is a hilarious what the fuck moment. And I liked it quite a lot, but it's only used to make the situation in that moment more dire for Iggy because he has to get her out of the danger now because they're in a battle, yada, yada, yada. And then that weird plot point that had great potential to become even more ridiculous and dumb gets immediately dropped in the next episode. Because she, just imagined being pregnant or it was a ghost child or whatever, and it's never brought up again. And that happens constantly. New characters are introduced to the already way too crowded and underwritten cast of people in the show on a regular basis in a way that makes them seem important, and then they immediately disappear from the show again. Yeah, that's that's problematic, even for a show like that. And say what you will about Valvrave and Cross Ange, and there's a lot to say about the shittiness of those shows. but at least they had a somewhat defined cast of characters. Horrible characters, yes, but you got to know enough about them to maybe care or sympathize with at least one of them. And they had a somewhat coherent plot. A hilariously stupid coherent plot, but still, in general, there was a feeling of focus in those shows. Big Order has no focus whatsoever, I feel. Like, I constantly got the feeling, okay, the creators of the show are making shit up on the fly, like with each new episode. Okay, where are we gonna go with the story today? Oh yeah, let's do this and then bring this new order in, and it makes no sense whatsoever. But let's just try it and throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And if it sticks, we're gonna tear it down in the next episode. So yeah, it's not focused enough. Even just in terms of consistency, you would expect that at least the two main characters had some sort of consistent plot line, but even those two shitty main characters get, their history and characterization pretty much completely rewritten by another plot twist at the very end of the series. So even there, you don't really have any consistency whatsoever. And yeah, that's problematic. And then we have the orders themselves, which, are kind of varied, but also pretty inconsistent in terms of how they are used. Of course, they are just, lame-ass CG versions of the stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in the first place. But even then, the powers are completely random, and often they are just defined by what kind of loophole they offer to get around the supposedly overwhelming power of Eiji's order, because he can make people do what he wants, basically, by infecting them with his order's power. He's kind of a bargain bin Lelouch. And yeah, they pretty much redefine the scale and, the effect of his power in each new episode. And it's like, oh, well, last episode he only could do that. Well, this episode he can do that as well. And as long as he wishes for it, it's all good. He can do that. And it's like, okay, what the fuck? And in the beginning, it's like, oh, there's no order that can even, remotely, breach his power. And then later on, oh, we got this order that cancels out his power. And we got this order that cancels out his power. And okay, what the fuck?
It's like they entirely missed the point of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and how each stand was essentially overpowered, but in a different way from all of the others.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the most interesting things, figuring out how to beat this new stand and what are his characteristics, what are his weaknesses. If it's an overly strong stand, what even is his power, with the world? When you watch that for the first time, you didn't know, much like the characters. And yeah, that was the fun part about it. That was the interesting part. And you have nothing like that in Big Order. It's like, okay, what shit gets thrown at AG in this episode, and what kind of bullshit does the story pull out of its ass to get him, make him get over again? So, Yeah.
Just keep on pushing that Deus Ex Machina button.
Exactly. This show is Deus Ex Machina to the max. And yeah, that's kind of, at one point you just lose interest. Even if you had very little to begin with and were only interested in the hilarious and shitty parts, it's like the show is not interesting enough in the other fields and cannot sustain itself just on its unintentionally hilarious parts. That's the problem. Like, for me, those shitty shows always need to have a bit going on in the other departments as well, in the story departments, in the animation departments, speed, whatever, in the character departments. But it can't just be the unintentional comedy itself. That's what I watch it for. But still, there needs to be something in those other parts as well that keeps me going. And Big Order sadly didn't have that. It only had the unintentional comedy part and the shitty, dumb writing, and that wasn't enough for me. Yeah. I think we've already spent way more time on the show than it deserves. So I'm going to end it here with, if you want to watch some so horrible that it's funny / entertaining anime, there are way better ones out there that I would recommend. Like I mentioned, Valrave and Cross Ange, they rank pretty high for me up there in terms of its their badness and their amalgamation of every shitty part, but still, some interesting developments that make sense in a weird way, so that you can, if you can deal with the shittiness, you can keep engaged and, grow to, maybe love some of the characters and get interested. Yeah, maybe, like I said, maybe get interested in the story. Actually, Cross Ange, as offensive and horrible it was in terms of its display of women and its stupid storyline, it got to an interesting point in the storyline where I genuinely wanted to know what would happen next. So
I watched 2 episodes of Cross Ange, just like I watched 2 episodes of Big Order before I dropped them both.
Yeah.
I hated everyone in both shows. I was like, every single character is terrible. No one has any good motivations. If the entire cast just died and that's where the story ended, okay, good, bye, see ya.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally see that. And, I can deal with that for, like, a few episodes. And then I expect, okay, one of these characters has to turn around, or there has to be a character introduced that isn't totally shitty, or they all have to die one after another, like you said. If they all die for the sake of story, that's fine. But yeah, that didn't happen in Big Order. All the characters stay shitty, the writing stays shitty, and at least like I said, in Valrave and Cross Ange, at least there was a turnaround at the end. In the beginning, just the badness kept me going, and in the end, it was like, okay, now we got at least a semblance of decent character and story in here. So yeah, like I said, that doesn't happen in Big Order. And don't get me wrong, Valrave and Cross Ange are still horrible shows.
Oh my
They're
god, I still can't.
Really bad.
I still can't believe I actually watched all of Valrave. Oh my.
I would never put those shows like in a ranking of like top anime or something. Never. But they were, to me, entertaining for the reasons I specified earlier. And, first kept me going for the one part, and then later on, because I latched onto some of the characters and the story actually got kind of interesting, I stayed with that. Once, the unintentional comedy outwore its welcome and everything, or, its appeal. And yeah, Big Order couldn't do that. Everything stayed shitty and only that. So yeah, can't recommend it at all. Better shows out there. The Lost Village seems to be the one from last season everyone was talking about in terms of so bad that it's good in a way. Maybe I'll check that one out too. I don't know. Regarding Big Order, all that's left to say is there are better ways to waste your time.
There's certain black holes of anime subgenres that I've tried not to delve too deep into as of recent.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is the good old light novel adaptation.
I was about to say, and you always failed, at least in the past.
That's not entirely true. I've cut back on LN adaptations quite a bit. Thank you
And
very much.
and now you're gonna dive into the idol hole.
I will always
That
be
sounded
stuck.
wrong. Wait a minute.
I will always be stuck in the world of the idols.
Okay. Well, maybe just in terms of, bad writing and everything, you fare better with the idol series than with the light novel stuff. The disparity between good and bad shows is probably not as wide as it is in with the light novel stuff, because there's some really horrid light novel adaptations out there. So, is this one of them?
I feel like this particular show, this little one called "And You Thought There's Never a Girl Online,"
Mm-hmm. Which is a long title.
It's even longer in Japanese.
Mm-hmm. They usually are.
But I feel like this one was actually decently entertaining for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's again another dark hole that I jump into, falls into the rom-com subgenre.
Mm-hmm.
I know you hate that.
Not one of my favorites, yes.
And I mean, I kind of like watching one every once in a while. 'Cause it's like, I don't know, I feel like the characters are at least somewhat interesting in some of them. So
Nothing wrong with that. If you can entertain and enjoy out of that, like I said, that's why I watch shit like, or try to watch shit like Big Order and Valve and stuff, because I get enjoyment and entertainment out of that. So yeah, if rom-com does that for you, that's cool and good. It's just like, it rarely does that for me. So, but I can see why.
but yeah. So the premise of the story is we have our hero, Hideki Nishimura, and he plays a lot of online games, in particular one called Legendary Age.
So that's a fantasy MMORPG, I assume?
They kind of make it look in the story like it's like a Diablo or a Ragnarok type of thing.
Oh, okay.
So yes, it is in an online RPG ostensibly.
Mm-hmm.
But one day he confesses to a girl online that he likes her. Turns out she's not a girl. Oops.
Oh no.
But he swears. He swears on his life he will never trust anyone who calls themselves a girl online ever again. Because let's face it, there's no girls on the internet, right?
Ah, okay. That's where the title stems from. I was about to say, how do I make sense of that? But now I can. All right.
Because obviously there's no girls on the internet. Never, ever.
Never.
Never,
Nope.
ever. That one girl you were crushed on for a year, it's Chris Hansen.
Okay.
Why don't you have a seat?
Yes. That's very relatable in terms of anime, I would say. Because a lot of these designs are pretty young, yes.
But one day he comes across this player named Akko, and this girl
In quotes.
confesses to him, and he's like, "I'm not gonna have it. I don't believe you."
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Turns out it's actually a girl.
All right.
And he has a lot of trouble coming to terms with this, but kind of eventually accepts. Okay, all right, so I guess there do exist girls on the internet, and this one's got the hots for me. Akko is kind of a quirky girl, though, and kind of has trouble distinguishing between what's real and what's in the game world.
Oh no.
Yeah, and she's very much a loner, shut in, who has trouble communicating. So he and his other guildmates, whose characters in the game are male, but hey, guess what? They turn out to be girls in RL.
What the fuck? So there are only girls online, apparently.
Pretty much. But they all sort of band together to help Akko sort of figure out, hey, you can't treat the real world the same as you do the game world.
Oh, so, okay, wait. So this is an intervention anime.
Yes and no.
So
because
wait, is it all played for laughs? Is it lighthearted comedy, or is there like, or does it venture into like dark places like Watamoto did? Because that she's also kind of a shut in and everything, and yeah, does it go there, or is it just
it
haha, all her quirks are very funny, and it never is anyone hurt?
it kind of tries to get to that.
Mm,
I feel like it doesn't quite get to the levels of real, like painfully real that Watamote does.
mm.
Because let's face it, that show,
Yes, that's
there's a little bit of self-reflection in
yeah.
that show.
If you lived your life as a nerd, you can relate to a lot of stuff in that show, painfully so.
But yeah, no, this particular show doesn't quite get to that, but it does kind of touch on that sort of thing where it's like, you can't just live your life sitting in front of a computer screen all by yourself. I mean, sure, you could try, you give your damnedest shot, but you gotta be in the real world at some point. So part of the story is a struggle with getting Akko to even just go to school.
Oh boy.
And she's so hot on Hideki that she calls they get married in game, like how many MMOs you can do that.
Uh-huh.
And Hideki is like, well, why can't we, just be boyfriend and girlfriend, that sort of thing. But Akko insists that, well, isn't that a downgrade from being your waifu? And
So
it's that
she wants to be like already be his wife in real life.
pretty much wants to be the homemaker so that she can stay at home and still play her online video. And I mean, that's the surface story. They kind of touch on other things like trust in an online relationship because there's one point where someone assumes Hideki's identity online,
Mhm.
and it gets to a point where it's like maybe that person who you thought you knew very well is actually someone else.
Oh, that's interesting. So it plays with the overall idea of, how much can you trust, the online persona
Like
of a person you're communicating with over the internet. I mean, how much do you really know about these people?
like that, and the idea of identity theft and whatnot too.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, but as I understand it, it only treats that for now as kind of in a superficial way, and doesn't really go into too meaty places with it.
Yeah, there's nothing about having to contact the government to change your social
Yeah,
security
yeah.
number or anything like that.
I was about to say it's probably difficult to tackle such subject matter in a serious way if you want to stay a lighthearted rom-com.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if the show or the story really, because light novel, whatever, can make a serious sort of statement on the idea of friendships and relationships online the way they actually are and their complications. Mostly because, when you think of having a friend online, like, look at us two. I live on the eastern seaboard of the United States, and you're from Germany. There's a
Hmm.
little bit of a gulp between us.
Yes.
Whereas between Hideki and all of his friends in his guild, oh, how convenient. They all go to the same school together.
Ah, okay. So
It,
it
but
immediately.
they didn't actually know it. Oh, plot
Yeah.
contrivances.
Well, maybe depending on what kind of people they are, Hideki wouldn't wouldn't talk to a circle of girls in his class because he's this
And
kind of.
that's actually pretty much the case.
Okay, so I can still bend my suspension of disbelief there, where it's like, okay, he's probably only talked to his male friends and he hasn't made any female friends yet. Add to that the the trauma that he suffered when actually going out of his stepping out of his safety zone and proposing to someone, and then getting that that heart attack moment where actually the girl you think you love turns out to be a man and something. Yeah, Sure, I can accept that, but still, it's like, okay, I can see they're doing that so that all the stuff that happens in the game, it's trickling over into the interaction in real life.
Yeah.
And that makes it funny. You can't do that if the people live too far away. So they had to put them probably in the same vicinity of each other to make the duality of that of their of the two lives that he lives, or he and his friends live, to make that work and to make that funny. And if they only conversed over Skype or something, that probably wouldn't have played so well. So I guess I can see where they did that.
Yeah, because this picks up that, as I said, Akko just doesn't go to school at first.
Mm.
Another one of them, Kyo, she's like, the very prolific student council president. And the other girl, Akane, is just a very haughty, standoffish, ew, don't talk to me type.
Oh, okay. We definitely have our character tropes there. Yes, all right.
Yeah, but the way they all kind of play off each other, I feel is really funny. So
Okay.
there's some merit to their tropes and their interactions.
Okay, so it's played for good comedy.
Yeah.
Is this like a hidden harem show? Is there like romantic interest for some of the other female characters, or is this just him and Akko?
I feel like it's him and Akko, but Kyo and Akane kind of, give him the look, but not in a very like serious or like permanent manner.
Okay, so it's not really they're not really getting serious about dabbling into other possible romantic candidates. Are the light novels still running? Do you know?
Yeah, it's been running since July 2013, so part of Dengeki Bunko's big conglomeration of light novels, as it were.
So wait, is it still being published, or is this?
Yeah, the next one is scheduled to come out apparently next month.
Oh, okay. So there's still story to be had, and maybe future, anime seasons. So maybe the show doesn't, might still, turn into, oh yeah, we have maybe a love triangle because he develops feeling for one of the other girls or stuff like that. But for now, apparently, it's just him and Akko. And I actually appreciate that, because that's kind of every time an anime, differs a bit from the norm there, or steps away from the standard stuff there, where it's like, hey, you are this self-insert character, and all these girls could be yours. That happens.
No, that we call that sword art.
Yeah, that happens a lot of time.
Zing.
And I just wonder, every time I hear this kind of setup where it's like one guy and a bunch of girls, is it like, are the other girls interested in him too? And apparently that's not so much the case in this one, and they're more like, okay, we're friends with Akko and friends with you, and we want to help you, make this relationship work and get her, actually make her actually get a life outside of the game world. And that sounds like a cool setup. That's something that you don't see that often. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun show that it touches on some interesting real life, actual perspective themes, but it keeps it lighthearted enough that I think anyone could really get some enjoyment out of it.
Cool. I'd be interested to see if it goes like into some of the topics. Goes a bit deeper into some of the social commentary topics, in terms of, hey, if you spend most of your time online, what kind of person do you become, and how do your relationships mostly work, get maybe a bit gritty in some parts without losing its focus of being a romantic comedy, but get a bit of drama in there that is not too forced. I think that would be interesting too, but we'll see if that actually happens. I haven't watched the show. Maybe I will. It's like I said, it sounds interesting, and we'll maybe get a second season. But how's the animation? Who's even producing the show?
The main crew producing it is Project Number 9.
Okay, I don't think I've heard of them before.
Yeah, it looks like they've done a lot of like production assistant type things. I mean, they have a couple other shows that they've done work on, like a Momo Kyun Sword. I mean, I've only heard of that show, but I
Yeah.
wasn't really interested in it. Oh, apparently a show called Girls Beyond the Wasteland, which I think I had heard of in passing, but I
Me
don't know
too. Yeah,
anything
I've heard that
about.
name.
And I guess they were aided by another studio called Barnum Studio, who's they did both of the Rokubu series. So if you
Never heard
like
of it.
your little schoolgirls playing basketball or whatever.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. That rings a bell.
Yeah,
Not seen the show though.
same. I just know it's a thing from playing Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax.
Right. There are characters from that in there. Now I remember I've seen it. That probably was the same. Yeah.
Speaking of, that's right. Akko and Hideki, I think, were added to the second version of that game. So there you go.
Okay. So I might have even seen them. That's interesting. Are there like action beats in the show where they like fight in the game world, or is it mostly focused on the comedy in real life once they get the initial setup out of the way?
There is a bit of interaction in the game world because there's one part where they like do this big PvP event. They show them going on a couple of dungeon runs. So, they do touch on that a bit too, just to establish that, hey, they do actually play the video game.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because, if they showed absolutely none of that, it would be like, okay, all right, so do they actually play the game?
Yeah, exactly.
Or...
You have formed this deep connection in the game, but we never see you actually playing the game. Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, so I feel like they touch on it enough to establish that yes, they do indeed play video. I don't believe I talked about the original creator is someone by the name of Shibai Kineko, and it looks like this is their only work. So
yeah, I guess. I mean,
but they
still
got
writing
off on
the novels apparently.
yeah, they got off on a pretty interesting foot with this story, though. It's because it's fun and it's enjoyable. So
yeah. So who would you recommend the show for then, like in general?
I guess if you want, that sort of rom-com type thing. Yeah, if you want like a fun rom-com show, or if you want your cutesy moe girly characters, they're there. But beyond the surface appeal, I feel like it is an enjoyable story.
All right. Yeah, it sounds definitely, like an interesting setup for for your standard rom-com, that's not too worn out. So yeah, maybe even though it's not my genre, I might check it out just because of the setup, because that sounds kind of interesting. And if they try to talk a bit about the themes we talked about, that could be interesting. We'll see. Are you gonna watch the second season if we get one?
If they announce it, sure.
All right. Okay.
But such is the case with many LN adaptations, that doesn't always happen so readily. It's kind of a miracle that Konosuba is coming back next year.
Okay.
Speaking of LN adaptations, but I don't fully expect this to come back. If it does, it'll be a nice surprise.
Sakamoto, just that, no first name, is the coolest kid in his school. All the girls want to get in his pants, all the boys are envious of his popularity, and obviously that causes some problems for Sakamoto, of course, because some of the kids and even the teachers try to one-up him constantly and damage his perfect reputation. But Sakamoto always finds new and often outlandish ways to get out of tough situations and often help his fellow classmates with problems. But who is this man of mystery? What is the story behind this kind, capable genius? Spoilers, we never find out.
Oops.
Yeah, well, don't go into the series, which is called Sakamoto desu ka, or haven't you heard I'm Sakamoto, expecting any grand story. This is a comedy show, which is obviously set in high school. Main character, Sakamoto, is this very dashing, very handsome dude who is always keeping his cool in the weirdest situations. Like, no matter what is thrown at him, he just keeps his kind of blasé, this kind of blasé, whatever look on his face that gets the ladies all riled up. And I don't know, there's one of a good example of how this usually is put into visual comedy in the show is there's a scene in the first episode where a classmate of his wants to make him look bad and takes his chair away in class. And then the next time he looks over, Sakamoto just sits basically in the air. But totally relaxed, all with sheer will and leg power. And stuff like that. Or someone sabotages the drinking system near the track and field place, and expects Sakamoto to get completely drenched. And that happens. But the next frame is Sakamoto like pushing back his wet hair and water drops and sweat drops glistening off his face, and him looking stunning, and all the ladies go ah. So yeah, that's a lot of what happens. But we get to more to what you can expect from the show later. It's based on a manga by Naomi Sano, who has done only that one series so far, and it's still going, I think. No, it's not still going. My mistake, sorry. I was confusing that with something else. So yeah, only that one manga so far. Maybe more coming soon. But yeah, and it's animated by Studio Dean, which might, some people already tell all they need to know about the quality level of the animation. They have done some good stuff in the past, like the Pet Labor OVAs and the first movie, and popular shows like Ranma and Rurouni Kenshin. But a lot of their TV stuff, at least from what I've seen, looks very limited in terms of animation. I mean, even in stuff like Kenshin and Ranma, you got really, really, lackluster episodes that are, have very limited animation. And another example would be maybe the old Fate Stay Night adaptation, and
The Dean Fate Stay Night was like, it was not good. I would dare say it was like Looney Tunes level at some points.
So yeah, that, and some episodes of Hex Sign were also very rough in my opinion. So yeah, Studio Dean is a very mixed bag, and in recent years they haven't really done anything that made me change that opinion of them. And Sakamoto won't do that either, because it's also not particularly well animated. The show has a lot of visual comedy, like I said, and some of the gags fall flat because the impact of the specific scenes is lessened by them just, being still frames, or they're limited in terms of actual animation. But like I also said, they do, however, nail the Sakamoto can look dashing anytime he needs to freeze frame joke. With lots of sparkles and sunbeams and detailed facial expressions and stuff like that. So yeah, that happens a lot in the show, and those usually work. It's only when stuff could use some actual animation and to convey some emotional stuff or anything that the show doesn't deliver. The director is Shinji Takamatsu, who has done School Rumble, so he knows his way around high school comedy.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good show. And,
yeah.
The framing of the jokes mostly work. Like I said, would have profited from being actually animated, but there are a lot of good shows in there that are, just in terms of how they... how they are framed and how they are put on scene and into certain scenes, and how to connect each other. It's well directed. A lot of that stuff is still funny. Would have profited from being actually animated. And not always being underlined by the same fucking music. That shit drove me nuts over time. Every scene where things suddenly go in Sakamoto's favor, or he does something, ridiculous to get out of a bad situation, the same fucking theme is playing, because it's his theme, and it's, the Sakamoto is awesome theme, and it's these dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and it's cute at first, but it gets very grinding over time. It's like, really, sometimes in several times during one episode, the theme plays every time he does something remotely maybe funny. And yeah, that's kind of annoying. I mean, a bit more variation there would have been nice. But sadly.
I wonder if, from what you're saying, they did that just to illustrate how grating his character is for all the other characters.
Yeah, maybe. But also that's a thing that is kind of weird, because in the beginning you would expect that, or the first two episodes make you think that it's gonna be always Sakamoto against the people who envy him and the bullies, but that very rapidly changes into different kinds of stories, and I'll maybe get to that later. But yeah, let's first talk about the comedy, which is the main aspect of the show. Comedy, in my opinion, is always a very difficult thing to get right because it's so subjective. A lot of people will find stuff funny that others don't. Some like more of the gross-out humor. Some like get their, like to have puns in their shows. Some people like to have, weird subtext comedy and stuff like that. So, funny stories and everything. Some like their visual gags and slapstick. So it's very hard to pull off a show that appeals to all ranges of comedy, and I think Sakamoto doesn't really try that. Like I said, it's in the beginning you think it's Sakamoto is being attacked by a classmate in a way, and or a prank is played on him, and here is how he gets out of this, and this is funny, and this is how he still manages to look cool and everything. But later on, a lot of the comedy is derived from the outlandish story itself. I, for the most part, like the comedy in Sakamoto, even though I didn't have any laugh-out-loud moments, but that rarely happens for me anyway. That one scene in Big Order I mentioned earlier, where I choked on a drink on my drink, because that was such a funny scene that I didn't see coming. That rarely happens for me. That's a really rare thing. I usually chuckle a bit, and I often chuckled during Sakamoto, and smiled at the gags, mostly as well here too, because I didn't see them coming, at least later on. Because from the summary and the first episode alone, you expect a show somewhat akin to Great Teacher Onizuka, I would say. And that's what I thought I'd get. Onizuka is, this guy who doesn't really fit into the class he's teaching. He's also one kind of delinquent that shouldn't really be a teacher, maybe. But his heart and, he is a good character with a lot of heart, and he actually manages to teach his shitty pupils a lesson and turn some of them around and make them good people and everything. And yeah, Sakamoto is also like that. And I thought this would be, in the beginning, it would be a one-note joke. Like, every time there is someone being an asshole, and Sakamoto with his coolness and everything, and his nonchalantness and whatever attitude, just, manages to get out of that bad situation, look good, and maybe help a classmate that's being bullied at the same time or stuff like that. And that happens, but a lot of the show's comedy also relies heavily on non sequiturs and other devices to turn your expectations on how a joke will play out completely upside down. Often, like I said, this revolves around Sakamoto getting out of a tough situation in a more ridiculous way than you could ever imagine. Let me try to find an example. Like in one scene, he's jumping out of a window, only using his school uniform as an improvised parachute. And he survives.
Of course he does.
Yeah. Or there's one scene where someone basically pushes a cart with a cleaning bucket on it towards him, and he, instead of getting run over by it. He jumps on it and turns it basically into a Segway. He rides down the school hallway while looking incredibly relaxed and cool doing it and being cheered on by his classmates and girls. That was a great scene. But yeah, stuff like that. But in a lot of other cases, the story of the episodes itself gets so crazy and nonsensical that you could have never seen it coming, and that is the joke itself. Like, it's hard to find an example there without giving too much away, but I'll take this bit from an episode as an example, which is also a good example for another weird thing that happens in the show that I didn't see coming, is that a lot of the humor gets very dark sometimes. Which I didn't see coming. Like I said, I expected some light high school serious humor like in GTO, but in one episode, and that's also an example for how crazy and weird the stories can get, the mother of one of Sakamoto's classmates falls for him and wants to leave her husband for Sakamoto, and it's actually framed in a serious and somewhat disturbingly depressing way. And the way Sakamoto solves this rather dire problem, without giving that away, is so incredibly stupid, but played so amazingly straight that you're just, snickering because it's so absurd. So rather than being obviously funny in itself, the show often revels so much in its own absurdity, like in that case, that itself becomes a punchline. It's hard to explain it without having seen it, but yeah, that's basically what happens a lot of times in the show. Like, really, really dumb shit happens and crazy shit that doesn't really make any sense at first, and you're wondering where it's going. And sometimes you get the feeling it doesn't really go anywhere, and you're wondering, did I miss some kind of subtext or something? Yeah, speaking of that, the ending of the show has a very dark and sad undertone that caught me kind of off guard, even with, a lot of weirdly dark stuff happening before. Again, maybe I didn't get the subtext. And I mean, like I said, it fits the weird general tone of the show, but still, that was a strange last episode, and a strange way to wrap up the series. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it. It was really, I wouldn't say off-putting, but yeah, I didn't quite know what to make of it. And considering the manga wrapped up in 2015, we probably won't see a continuation. So, I don't know. That ending kind of left me confused, to say the least. Yeah, another thing I want to add is that I think the show would have worked better if it was short form. Most episodes consist of an A and B part, maybe with a short intermezzo in the middle that's like 1 minute or something. But yeah, usually it's like two stories, one in the first half of the episode, one in the second half. And they usually are not related to each other at all. So you could easily put it into a short form version. And I'm not quite sure why they didn't. They could have avoided, for some of the jokes, to wear a bit thin or overstay their welcome. Same counts for the music, in my opinion. But yeah, I think short form would have worked better than 20 minutes runtime.
Or maybe so that they could tell like two parts of a story, and they're supposed to just, with a short one, you can only probably tell maybe like one or part of one.
Yeah, but like I said, the two parts are rarely connected to each other. It's usually, here's this one stuff, and then it's wrapped up at the end of the first half of the episode, and then starts a completely different story.
Yeah, maybe I worded that a bit badly. Just, like two shorter stories in one time block,
Yeah, maybe that was the intention. It felt weird sometimes. I mean, there are some episodes, I don't know, maybe only one or two, where you have like a story that goes through the whole episode, but still, you could have made that a short form and to be continued at the end. I don't know, just felt a bit weird here and there. Sakamoto itself, the character, is also a very interesting example, in my opinion, for what is considered a cool and desirable protagonist in Japan, which I assume he's supposed to be because that's how he's framed. If this was a Western show that runs on the CW or something like that, like, I don't know, Arrow or something, he might be, a more muscular guy, maybe, with broad shoulders or something, and overall broader physique. But Sakamoto is, he's very slender. He's not overly tall. He has like this normal, very neat black hair instead of a crazy spiky anime haircut. For all intents and purposes, he looks pretty realistic in terms of a beauty standard or ideal or something. And he wears glasses, which are actually a very important part of his appearance and heavily featured in the opening animation of the show, which I adore. That one is definitely going to make my top 10 anime openings of 2016 because the music is great and it's pretty creative and funny opening. Yeah. But yeah, that was really interesting to me. Like what is considered cool in the eyes of the author, and if I'm not mistaken, the show went over well with the crowd it was aimed at in terms of character design and everything. So yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it sounds just like it was trying to be as goofy as it could. So
yeah, that's difficult. Sometimes it was really goofy, and sometimes it felt like there was this underlying seriousness that was trying to tell me something about a specific subject, but either I was too oblivious or it was too, I don't know, I had to dig too deep. But like I said, with the stuff with the ending and some of the darker episodes, like, okay, the show is the show trying to tell me something through subtext that I don't get. And yet, the humor itself is, aside from the visual comedy and sometimes slapstick, it's very non sequitur. It's very absurdist comedy. So yeah, it's hard for me to say who to recommend this show to, because it can be so strange and off kilter. Pretty sure a lot of people will find nothing funny in the show. So I'd say maybe check out the first 1 to 3 episodes. Not only the first one, because that kind of gives you the wrong impression that Sakamoto will spend the entire series runtime fighting off bullies, which is so not the case. Like I said, the series takes some very weird turns. I don't know. If you get nothing out of these first few episodes that keeps you engaged or entertained, there's probably nothing for you later on either. It's a special brand of funny. I enjoyed most of it, but I totally get why someone would quickly drop this one, because some jokes are not for everyone. And that is a wrap on the 14th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and animebrainfreeze.com. Leave us a comment any way you like, or send us an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Adios!
Sayonara.